Me. We are the Rehoboth Beach Environment Committee.
Charlie, please wait. I will tell you when you can start.
Okay, Max, I'll wait.
Charlie, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you, Max. Hello, this is Charlie Garlow speaking, Chair of the Rehoboth Beach Environment Committee. It's 11:01 on Friday, August 7. We have a quorum of members who are here to conduct business and discuss the pertinent issues. I will note from our participants list that in addition to our hosts, Max Hamby and Ann Womack from the city, we have me, Commissioner Dick Byrne, Heather Metz, Stuart Martins, Catherine Burgwin, Mary Peck, and Nettie Green. Anybody else on the line? I don't recognize them as being part of the happy crew that we have here today. I'd like to start off our discussion by welcoming Commissioner Byrne to let you continue your thought about issues that you were just discussing prior to the beginning of our meeting, so that can be on the record. Dick, did you want to continue your thought, or were you finished before?
No, I was finished. Whatever is pertinent on that topic will come up when we talk about that topic. Thanks, Charlie. Just happy to be with you all and encourage you just to jump into the agenda and get to work. Thank you.
Good. Commissioner Byrne was mentioning that the appointment of members of this environmental committee go from October 1 to September, the end of September. And then when that time comes, we can either reappoint everybody here, which I hope to do, because we've got a great crew, and we may we may ask some additional people to join us, such as Ernie, who is a friend of Catherine Burgwin's, who's a master gardener. He perhaps would be a good addition to our committee. So we'll talk about that later as we get closer to the end of September. So on the agenda today are questions about the single-use plastics, 5G concerns, and if we have time to get down to it within our hour, continuing discussion of climate action plan, including anti-idling provisions that Mary Peck would like to hold forth on. And if we get around to it, also gardening, wildlife, stormwater runoff from that whole area of wildlife and gardening and runoff is another topic that we would like to address as well. But we may be crammed because of time. So let's get started quickly by knocking off one issue, which we've been working on since our beginning, which is the single-use plastics. And I wanted to report to you, and Stuart has been helping me with this project, to contact, as we agreed at our last meeting, the Main Street and Chamber of Commerce folks. That would be Dan Slagel and Carol Everhart from the Chamber of Commerce, to get their reactions to our proposal that we had drafted and gotten pretty close to final draft of. Stuart, do you want to tell us about our meeting with Main Street and Dan Slagel, how that went?
Excuse me, Charlie.
Yes.
Do you have approval of minutes that need to be done?
Oh, the minutes. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
You
can follow your agenda.
Oh, yes. I would be glad to do that after we do our minutes approval. Catherine Burgwin has previously submitted minutes. They are a part of the record. I hope everybody's had a chance to see them and review them. Our last minutes of our last meeting in July. Is there anyone who has any clarifications, edits, corrections, comments on the minutes that Catherine Burgwin prepared? Thank you, Catherine, for doing a yeoman's job on that. Do I hear a motion for approval of those minutes?
Anybody? So moved.
Yeah, I'll second.
Nettie seconds, and that was Stuart who approved. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Hearing no nays, the minutes are approved. Thank you, Ann Womack, for bringing that point forward. Now, if I may take us back to the substantive matters of our agenda. Stuart, you were about to tell us about...
Charlie, excuse me.
Yes, Dick?
Yeah, just interrupt. Again, on the agenda, the next item is correspondence. So you want to just make everyone aware of the correspondence that's indicated in the minutes.
Great, thank you, Dick.
Yeah.
Since I
Thank you.
the agenda, that's very helpful. I had turned my screen to our 5G issues and skipped over that. We received a number of pieces of correspondence which have will be further discussed during the discussion we have on the substantive issues. Everybody had a chance to take a look at the correspondence that was received? And then yes, did I hear someone speaking?
Yes, I did take a look at it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else have any thoughts or comments on the correspondence received? I know that we'd received some which we'll be talking about later on.
We only got the correspondence from Heather, so we will, at least that's all that's listed in our, no, I'm on the minutes. Was there other, excuse me, never mind, I'm in the minutes.
Yeah, actually, the minutes
Yeah.
indicate the correspondence with Stan Mills regarding
Yeah, I'm
recycling.
sorry. I'm on the right page now, so go ahead.
Stan Mills did send us about updates on the beach and boardwalk and recycling, which I hope you had a chance to note. Basically, things are on hold there due to COVID-19 and budgetary matters that the city is facing. I think that's a summary of what Stan Mills shared with us.
Right.
Any other correspondence there? I think those are the two items. Yes? Okay, let's return back to the issue of single-use plastics products and Stuart. We're going to tell us about our meeting with Dan Slagel from Main Street. Stuart?
Okay, well, Charlie and I had a very good meeting with Dan Slagel, who is the head of Rehoboth Beach Main Street, and it was very productive. I mean, it was first of all wonderful to meet him. He's doing a really wonderful job for Rehoboth Main Street, and we met outside in the pagoda at Grove Park. So he was interested to hear and is supportive of what we're trying to do in the world of plastics. He himself took an interest in it, and he said anything that could support the beautification and the betterment of the people that come and visit Rehoboth he was all in favor of. So we just reviewed the proposal. We actually gave him written copies of the presentation that we did to the advisory task force. And that was the proposal that all of you have seen from February of this year. So he has a copy of that now, and he was very supportive of it and would support anything and like to be kept up to date on anything that happens in regards to our plastics issues.
He did make a suggestion or two. Is that right, Stuart?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Dan had a couple suggestions. I'm trying to remember what those were. I don't have the notes on it.
Outreach, workshops.
Oh, yeah. Well, here again, we've talked about that. It's in our original proposal of talking about next steps. And most of the time, we seem to be skipping by these issues.
We don't get to it.
Of talking to the business owners and doing a brainstorm with them, because if we're on different sides of the table, then we don't have a collaborative effort. If we're on the same sides of the table, and Dan liked the idea of reaching out to them, doing outreach, he said he would help us do outreach because obviously he has relationships with the business owners, as does Carol. So he would be happy to help us. And I think it's such a critical part. And we don't need to be worried about, oh, this time it's COVID, next time it'll be Sea Witch, or next time we always have something that can get in the way, but there's nothing in the way of working on the educational part of this. And Dan was willing to share the Main Street website to post stuff. So I thought that was really nice of him. And that's the real important part of this, having the business owners as well as Rehoboth Beach Main Street, as well as having the Chamber of Commerce post the educational things and post the stuff that we're trying to do, because these things get really hundreds of thousands of hits a year. And we obviously don't get those, not listening to our meetings.
Thank you, Stuart. I was going to report to you on a conversation I had with Carol Everhart from the Chamber. She did receive the same materials that we sent with Dan. And she said she would have to talk to her board about this, and she did. And she got back to me as she promised. And she said that
Lost you.
her board was a little, they didn't say that. It seems like, golly, we have so many troubles with COVID-19 and our businesses are going down the tubes. And it's sort of, Carol gave the impression that people were just sort of overwhelmed by that.
Right.
I asked her if she had pointed out that it doesn't take effect right now. It doesn't, our proposal was not to take effect until the 1st of next year. But it may very well be that even that may be seen as too soon. So I'm thinking we may want to revise our proposal to say that the effective date is January 1st of 2021, or such later date as the commissioners may determine based on the COVID-19 situation or based on the economic recovery of the city and its businesses. I'm not quite sure how to express that in order to express or honor the feelings or the thoughts that Carol said she got from her board. Any thoughts on how we should handle their thoughts, issues?
I think we're playing dodgeball here. We're using just like we use, see which or this, that, or the other to not deal. I mean, right across, my husband and I don't go out very much, but we did go out to an establishment right across from the convention hall the other day. And these were in our glasses. And I made a comment about them. And I said, we really don't need straws. Other people are using paper straws or no straws. And the waitress said, well, they're eco straws. We know eco straws are still made of plastic and so on. But anyway, this is right across from the convention hall. So I think we're kind of, it's like, oh yeah, COVID, we're dealing, and here we still break the law, the Delaware state law, which is that all municipalities should be recycling. Dewey recycles. They have 2 cheap little bins that they recycle plastic and metal, and they have and it's on the beach, and we don't in Rehoboth. We just throw it all together. And so I think I hate to disagree with Carol Everhart, and people are overwhelmed. Yes, but we're not following the law. We're not following, the state could get after us with COVID and everything else. So I think we're excusing ourselves too much. It's just my feeling.
Thank you, Nettie. Anybody else have a reaction?
Yes.
Yeah, Charlie, I was going to say, I think as far as this committee goes, I think we've done our work. We've taken it to a proposal that we should push it up to the next level. If the businesses are saying they just need more time, then that's good, because at least they're kind of agreeing that they would do these things, and let it get it out of our committee, and let the commissioners decide what time frame they want, and also we can recommend this and leave it to others to decide the time frame. I think I agree with Stuart that the education can start whenever, because that doesn't require anything from them, and I think we all seem to agree on what these measures should be. So I don't think it's productive for this committee to talk about it every month. I think we've got a good solid proposal. Send it out to the commissioners. Let them decide when or if or how they want to deal with it.
Thank you, Mary. Another thought?
I'd like to chime in, Charlie, on that. Just adding to what Mary and Nettie are saying. Item number 3 on our proposal is the marketing and education stage. And let's just take the straws that Nettie was just showing to us. It's true that that compostable straws cost 3 to 4 times what a plastic straw costs. It's also true that what Carol shared with us in our meeting is that it could very easily be within the next 60 days that more than 50% of the businesses on Rehoboth Avenue go under because of the COVID. That's how bad it is. So it was really revealing. That being said, and to Mary's point, an educational, just taking the one thing of the straws. If we use compostable straws, yes, they cost 3 to 4 times more than a plastic straw. And if there is an A-frame on every table in every restaurant that talks about why you should not be using plastic straws, there is research and there is absolutely realistic data that shows 80% of the patrons will reject straws outright. That more than makes up for the 3 to 4 times the cost of a plastic straw. It is time, I think a wise man once said, you either have results or the reasons you don't have results. And I think Dick can clarify this, but the commissioners are going to do the timing anyway. We're making a proposal. It needs, people are getting sick by using plastic. Hormones are being affected. Thyroids are being affected. Yes, to what extent, who knows? I mean, because we're such a small little drip in the ocean, but I think it's time for us to make a point and make our drip a little bit bigger drip and put this out. The commissioners, and I believe, are going to do the time anyway. We've always been told that we can't do anything before January 1st, which is when the state ban happens on plastic bags for the large box stores. But plastic is coming into Sussex County like crazy, especially since COVID started. Everybody's having stuff shipped to their homes. They're all using these peanuts, these styrofoam peanuts. Plastic coolers are being shipped in with prescriptions and cold seafood with dry ice. This problem is significantly worsening. So what we're trying to do here is not much. And the education part is so critical to this. You can teach 80% of the people not to ask for no straws. That seems to be a win-win for the businesses. You're helping them to save money, and they're going under. What little we can do to help them keep them from going under is probably a drop in the bucket and is not going to help much, but every little bit, as I say, helps. So that's my clarification of those comments.
Thank you, Stuart. Let me interrupt and say that Janet Taylor Smith had been trying to get in. Max Hamby, are you able to assist Janet in getting in? She says she gets a little spinning circle and doesn't join us. Max, are you working on that, or are you able to help Janet join the meeting?
I'll see what I can do.
Okay, thank you. Good, thank you, Stuart, for your comments. I was just going to add one other amendment to our proposal is that, see these things? The or 8-pack liners, which I don't know is currently covered by our proposal. It would mean that I would suggest that we ban the sale of products using these sorts of 6-pack container. What's the better term to use to describe them? I'm not sure. Bird choking things. Yeah.
Bird things.
Well, we'll figure out what the right term might be to add that to our proposal. Any other thoughts or comments on the effective date or the comments of Carol Everhart?
Charlie, let me just enter in briefly, wearing my commissioner's hat, obviously.
Yes.
Lots of good points have been made here, and I think they're all very important. I think it's tremendous that you spent time with both Main Street and the Chamber, because that'll be one of the commissioners' interests to know what their thoughts are. Because without their support, this isn't going to fly with the businesses. I mean, the businesses look to those two organizations for a lot of leadership in Rehoboth Beach. And like Stuart said, it's an incredibly difficult time. Most of our businesses are just barely hanging on, trying to make it through the summer, and we are going to lose many when we get into the off season, I'm sure. So it is a time of struggle. for most of them. And so I understand what Carol Everhart shared with you and what her board is concerned about. I also really like what Stuart was talking about in terms of the importance of an educational program, and then that doesn't cost anyone anything. That can be done in a factual, scientific, helpful kind of way that I think can really move things ahead. And so I think it is appropriate for the commissioners, this early fall to have a serious discussion of this. It has to start now. It's not going to happen overnight, is my guess. And so I think a lot of work from all of you has gone into this, and that you give it, your very best shot. I think the next thing to do would be for Charlie and if it's Stuart or one or two of you to get a meeting with our city solicitor and take the proposal to Glenn so that he can, from a legal point of view, look at it and see if there's advice there that should go into it before it's presented to the commissioners. Now, there's always this interesting discussion for me. Do you go to the commissioners first and then get legal advice, or do you go through the city solicitor? My attitude is that it doesn't have to be perfect, but I think if the city solicitor can give some advice before it goes to the commissioners, that just helps strengthen it. And then obviously, whatever happens there will go back through the city solicitor before it were to become an ordinance. So I think that could be a useful next step, Charlie.
Thank you, Dick. I should note that we did have a conversation with our attorney. He was mentioning how the state the ban on plastic bags, the flyaway, throwaway bags that affects the larger sources, did prevent us from banning those bags for smaller sources like our businesses in Rehoboth Beach because of the action of the state law. But it did not prohibit us from putting the 10-cent fee that is in our proposal. We could resubmit the revisions to the proposals that we've made since the last time we spoke with him, see if there's any other issue that he might identify.
Sure.
I'll contact him right away. And then thereafter, one would think that unless he has some serious objection that would require us to bring it back to the committee here, I would propose that we then, after talking to Glenn, our attorney, submit it to the mayor to see if he'd like to bring it up at some subsequent meeting at their pleasure.
Yeah, it would come up, depending on the timing of you interacting with the city solicitor. You could potentially get it on the workshop agenda for September, but certainly for October. And then, one or two of you representing the Environment Committee would be there to make a presentation and to interact with the commissioners in terms of discussion and so on. And that would be the way to move it ahead.
Good. At our last meeting, we had voted to push this proposal forward. And so with your suggestion, I will ask if there's any objection to what Dick has mentioned or what I've suggested as well, to have a conversation with Glenn, and then, absent no major problems, to then take it to the mayor and board of commissioners for their discussion, for their consideration. Anybody have a thought on that? If not, I'm pretty much done with that topic for today, I think. No, Nettie has her hand up.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, the educational part are there some of us who could start putting things in, restaurants and, doing the education part? Stuart, you have, the factual knowledge. I'd be glad to be the person that walks around and puts things in restaurants. If you could write up something, that we could just put on every table, if we're allowed to do that. I'm a very practical person, I'm sorry.
Well, Nettie, we're glad to have your enthusiasm and your willingness to help out. I would suggest that we might want to prepare some of those educational materials in advance of making the proposal to the commissioners, so the commissioners can see, hey, here's some draft educational materials. We might like to go rolling it out. But I would hesitate to start putting them in, or asking restaurant owners or others to start putting little tabletop information sheets on until we've got the blessing and the approval of the mayor and board of commissioners.
Okay.
That they're glad to see happen, and we can start the educational process in advance of when it takes effect. And if they approve it right away, I would hope that we can start our educational efforts right away.
Okay, but do we need, I guess what I'm asking is, okay, do we need to have all that worked out and prepared to show to the commissioners what type of educational little thingies we're going to put out? Should that, yeah.
Stuart, opine on that?
Yes, Lonely Whale already has the stuff done, and some of our restaurants are already using it. So Lonely Whale, which is a big organization for all over the country, already has the tabletops, and there's some restaurants in Delaware already using it. So I've downloaded it. And this is part of the educational thing. You do an education workshop with the businesses and get their input. We don't have their input yet. And certainly if we're going to bring things to, and Dick, you can clarify, if we're going to bring things to the commissioners, if you have 10 or 15 businesses who have given some input and we have their support, that even strengthens our proposal even stronger when we go to the commission. So
Absolutely.
that's not hurting anything, but see, the work has already been done. All we had to do is go find it. And Lonely Whale and other organizations have it. And it's an educational tool. And you could educate tens of thousands of visitors very quickly by putting those tabletops on there. But you got to ask the owners their permission. You got to tell them, we got to have a proposal of what we're doing, why we're trying to do it, and that we have this larger proposal that we're hoping to present to the commissioners very shortly.
Okay, so we have to have the proposal passed by the commissioners before we start doing this? No? Okay.
No.
Get me straight.
If the tabletop already exists.
Okay.
So all we need to do is download a dozen of them, print them. You can download them, and then take them to get the list of 10 or 12 restaurant owners and approach them. And we need to have, or if even better, if Main Street, either Dan or Carol, can get some business owners together, if they have a monthly roundtable networking thing, be on the agenda to do the proposal in front of 10 people, socially distancing, of course, and show them this and do the education. It's number 3 in the thing. It's doing the education and doing a workshop, doing a brainstorm on it. We need their input. We need their input. Then you have all you need the stakeholders involved in the process instead of us trying to tell these business owners what to do. That is not
right. That's the way we do it.
That's a recipe for failure.
Yeah. Okay. But if we download this stuff and speak to some of the people, and propose this to the commissioners, that would help the commissioners pass it, or we wait till the commissioners do it. See, I'm just not understanding the steps.
Nettie, may I help you with this? I think it would be best if you make a proposal to the commissioners. If they say thumbs up, go for it, then we can start educational activities prior to the effective date of the law, which wouldn't be until next year.
Got you.
If we go this afternoon with some of the educational materials that we downloaded, the business owners may say, is this something that's going to be law or what? And we might cause some confusion there.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
And I think one of the things that Stuart was saying, and if I'm interpreting this correctly, Stuart, and I certainly support this approach, is that you continue to work with the chamber and with Main Street in terms of pulling this educational program together. That you need them on your side. And if they buy into this and they can figure out how best to begin to apply it, as opposed to city government trying to impose something, if it can come from them, if they can, hear the ideas, the opportunities, and then figure out how to begin to apply this to what they're doing, is the way that it's going to be most successful.
Okay.
Well, let me say this. I'm glad to have more discussion on this topic. Unfortunately, we only have an hour to discuss all the things we wanted to talk about. We spent a lot of time, more time on this than I thought we would be, since we had already finalized it, I thought.
So let me just quickly review for the notes. So we are going to give the commissioners you're going to talk to Glenn. We're going to give the proposal to the commissioners. And if they say, great, we like this idea, and you're going to talk to all the businesses before this is finalized, then we talk to the businesses, et cetera, and then we bring it back to the commissioners, correct? For final approval.
I was thinking that there would be one approval by the commission, an interim approval, and then a final approval.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Interim approval, then we get with Carol Everhart and those guys, show them what we're thinking, education, blah, blah, blah. Then we say, okay, business communities on, back to commissioners for the ordinance. Correct?
Well, I was thinking I would talk to Glenn, and if there's no major problems there, that we would take it to the commissioners and see what they want to do. To do an interim approval followed by a final approval, that's fine. If they want to just say, hey, this is fine the way it is, you guys on the environment committee want to start some educational activities, get going on it, that's fine. But I didn't see an interim approval by the commissioners and then a final approval by the commissioners as being helpful. I don't know. Maybe it is. Are there other thoughts? Or thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Any other thoughts or comments or problems with single-use plastics and that topic? If not, we have two other topics today that I was hoping we can get through. One is maybe relatively short. That's Mary Peck's suggestion about idling and a more extensive discussion of 5G, which Heather put together in great detail to help us understand it. Perhaps I can, Mary, if she can tell us briefly what her thoughts are on idling, and then we can go into a more robust discussion of 5G. Mary, does that sound feasible?
Sure. Yeah. So I have put attached to our documents the links for what the city of Newark did. And so I think we talked about it before, that the state of Delaware regulates large tractor trailers as far as idling goes, but the smaller trucks and cars, there's no specific law that prohibits idling here in Rehoboth Beach. And so I was just proposing that we ask the commission to adopt a very similar ordinance to Newark. And I thought this would be a pretty quick and easy thing, to kind of just give it to Glenn. That would be his job, or just tailor it to just change it to Rehoboth. And basically this ordinance would ban idling for all vehicles in Rehoboth with over 5 minutes, and with certain exceptions in like extreme cold weather and such. And it kind of also defines what emergency vehicles can do. And so it flew in Newark. It was, nobody's challenged it. They got praise from DNREC for taking this extra step. So I thought it was something easy that we could do. And I happen to know that there are people who live in the city that want this thing. So we can make some people feel like we're helping them. So I don't think there's much work we would need to do if, we have this very simple framework that can be followed. So that's about it. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to read the actual ordinance and have any further comments from what I have, but that's what I would propose.
Thank you, Mary. Are there thoughts or comments from people about any of the issues that might be involved, like, for example, enforcement? Is it enforced by the same people that do parking enforcement, or any police officer?
Yeah,
any citizen who could take down people's license plate numbers?
I imagine that the way I think it works in Newark, it's like the local police would, and there's a part in this ordinance about, what the fines are, kind of a small, they'd get a ticket and a little fine if they get caught. That's the other thing. We already have the resolution that Rehoboth Beach is an anti-ordinance idling city that the commissioners passed a few years ago. And so we can say this is consistent with your position that you want to be an anti-idling city. You want that, but you haven't gotten there because we know that there's still all these work trucks, Rehoboth, especially in the other seasons, but even in the summer with the landscapers, it's just full of these little work trucks that are idling all over the place when they take their bathroom breaks, lunch break, whatever. And it's very bothersome to a lot of people in their houses when these trucks are idling in front of their house, and also around the Grove Park where the public restrooms are. It's like all this idling around Grove Park and Royal Farms. And it really has gotten to the point a lot of people perceive it as a big nuisance. And so it would be a local police issue where, because now if you call the Rehoboth police and complain about idling, they don't have anything to do they can do with it. And so yeah, that's how I would see it. People could call the police and say somebody's idling, and then they would come down and they could give them a ticket.
Are there other questions for Mary from anybody else here today? Hearing none.
Mary, thank you for your research and everything. Were there two
Components.
two items that you sent to us on the agenda, or is it just one?
For the documents?
Yeah, are there two documents or one document?
There were two. One of them was just a little background thing that the city of Newark had on their website that I thought maybe, could possibly put it on our website for an informational, the city could have for informational purposes, idling is bad and now we have a law or whatever. And then the other document was an actual verbatim of their ordinance text.
Okay.
Did
Did they both open for everyone else? I'm having difficulty opening the first one, the one that's called, let me find it here on my other computer, the Newark anti-idling. It just doesn't open for me. Is it opening for others?
I printed.
Okay, well, I'm able to get the article, whatever it is, 29, idling of vehicles.
Excuse me, Commissioner Byrne. I believe
Yes.
the link to that is broken, and I'll go ahead and reinstall it.
Okay, thank you, Ann. That solves it.
Hmm.
Great.
Thanks,
Well,
Mary.
then, may I suggest that Mary, who's an attorney, speak with Glenn, our city attorney, to see if he would have any objection to this or suggestions on how to, make it work right. And then we move ahead and add this to the list of things we want to propose to the commissioners.
Great.
It seems relatively simple and not complex like some other issues are.
Okay. Right.
Okay. Let's move quickly to 5G. Heather has done a wonderful job of preparing lots of material for us to look at. And we have heard her several times trying to get something done on this before the cat's out of the bag or it's too late and that sort of thing. So Heather, let me turn the floor over to you to give us your introductory thoughts or what you'd like to have happen here today.
Okay, thanks, Charlie. I hope you have all seen the proposal that's attached to the meeting agenda. This has been put together over the last 6 months as a follow-up to the mayor and commissioner's request at the meeting on February 22nd. The proposal, the way it's written now, has 3 parts. The first part is updating the wireless communications facility ordinance. The second part is implementing an actual permit application document for all new wireless communications facilities in the city. And the third is a request to the state of Delaware to issue a resolution to study the health effects of radio frequency emission. The goal, as always, as I stated before, is to protect the health and the safety of our residents. We also want to make sure that we're maintaining our valuable aesthetics of our city that are very well documented in our comprehensive development plan. We want to make sure we're minimizing any property value reductions to individual homeowners and to ensure the transparency of the process. A few updates since the last meeting. interesting stuff. On July 22nd, Hawaii County, which is the big island of Hawaii, the entire big island of Hawaii, voted on a resolution to halt rollout of 5G until the safety studies are done. On July 29th, the FCC was sued for the third time for refusing to update their 24-year-old safety standards in the District of Columbia Appeals Circuit Court. And yesterday, the Americans for Safe Technology reported that 700 doctors and scientists have signed a letter opposing the FCC's lack of safety data. I've also been working with the head of the Montgomery County Coalition for Control of Cell Towers. They have a wealth of experience and were really super helpful. And the leader advises that, quote, the city risks being overrun by wireless communications facilities unless it acts immediately to create a plan to manage and control design and placement and enforcement procedures. And quote, that the city does in fact have a proprietary right to control placement decisions and set rules governing infrastructure aesthetics. We currently have 5 small wireless communications facilities operating. An additional one was constructed on the boardwalk over the last few months. One of the commissioners told me there are 6 new requests, but I have no real way of knowing. The city should not have to be considering these requests for permits for wireless communications facilities while we are still under a state of emergency. The city staff is overburdened enough already. In addition, the city is flanked by 2 over 200-foot multi-level cell towers, and there are additional antennas on the water tower flanking the city. In addition, there are also large banks of antenna on the top of the Star of the Sea and the Henlopen Hotel. Verizon has proposed 18 additional ones along the boardwalk. The Montgomery County Coalition has also advised us that based on what happened in Ocean City, Maryland, we may reasonably expect between 30 and 40 new requests in the next 12 to 36 months. Verizon just installed a wireless communications facility in Dewey Beach in front of Gary's. It's on a pole with a 4G and 3 5G transmitters. And originally it looked like the picture of what you would find at State Street in Hickman of the black box on the ground. That's what originally was there. And then it will be turned into the pole with the antennas on top. If any of you have a chance, I would encourage you to go over there and take a look at it. And I think you would all agree that it definitely does not fit in with the beautiful aesthetics of our city.
So are you saying go look at the one at Dewey?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
New Orleans Street, right in front of Gary's, right on Route 1. It's a new Verizon one. The ones we currently have in the city are all AT&T, so that's the Verizon version. There are 2 main concerns that I'd like to address ahead of time, and then of course, if you guys have questions afterwards. The first one is regarding connectivity during the pandemic. We have more people working and going to school from home. But at home, they're using wired connections. They're not using wireless service. Wireless data like 5G is not a free service that's being provided by the city or by the telecom companies. They are putting up these towers to make a profit. People, again, at home are using their wired connections that go to their house. If you were to use this wireless service to go to school or to do your work, it would be very costly. It's much more cost efficient for people to use their wired connections at home. So there's really no need for this regarding people working and going to school from home. The second issue is regarding setbacks from residences being either against the law or against the FCC guidelines. I just want to point out that the FCC order is not a law. It is an order from a government commission. It was not voted on by an elected body, but actually voted on by only 3 people in this whole entire country. One of the commissioners of the FCC actually voted against it. The order is currently being challenged in 3 federal lawsuits, and it may be overturned. If it is, it will be very difficult for us to have wireless communications facilities that we've installed taken down. The city solicitor has expressed this to me and said that the law firm that the city hired to write the ordinance's opinion is that setbacks are not legally workable. But there are other law firms and other attorneys that have different opinions. That's why it's called a legal opinion. There are other firms, and I don't want to name their names, I have all the information if you want to read it, but there are other firms that have helped other jurisdictions, just like our own, rewrite their ordinances so they are much more protective of our residents. And some of those do include setbacks in certain conditions. And again, a setback is not a ban. There are other locations available in the city to place these communications facilities that aren't directly in front of someone's home. And finally, that the FCC does allow aesthetic requirements if the wireless communications facilities are unsightly and out of character, which they clearly are in our city. Placing wireless communication facilities in our residential neighborhoods also goes against our city's and state-approved comprehensive development plan, which states, quote, "We place a very high emphasis on aesthetics. We are a small town reminiscent of a bygone era, a place of special beauty." And so I guess I would like to make a motion that we approve the proposal and pass it on up to the commissioners, because there's still a lot of work to be done. And Verizon is also out there working really hard to put their stuff up. So I don't know, Charlie, do you do that?
Thank you, Heather. Excellent summary. So it comes in, the proposal comes in 3 separate sections, which were emailed to us. Thank you, Heather. And I think I sent it around to everybody as well. The first part was A, to amend the zoning ordinance, and it had 5 parts to it. And then there was a B, the permit application should include those 10 different things were there. Is everybody seeing that? I hope you're able to pull that up on your from your email or someplace or other at the same time. And the third one was the request of the state legislature to study the effects. So as I'm reading this, there's nothing in here that says we're banning WCF here in the city. It doesn't fall afoul of the federal law, as far as I can tell. It's mostly trying to stay on the right side of the law at the same time that we're asserting a desire to have better aesthetics and to have studies and to have applications that are clear and are transparent for the community to look at. I know that Nettie had earlier expressed an opinion. She thought this was great stuff. And if I'm speaking out of line, Nettie, please correct me. Or if anybody else would like to chime in on their thoughts or analysis on this 3-part proposal.
I just had a couple questions, Heather. One of the things I didn't quite catch when you were just speaking now about the attorneys having conflicting opinions. Are you talking about our attorney here in Rehoboth, or are you talking about in Bethesda or wherever this case is?
So I had some communications with our city solicitor, I'm sorry. And he had gone to the attorney that drafted the ordinance there in Pennsylvania, and they gave the opinion that setbacks were not in accordance with the FCC regulations. But I guess the point I was trying to make is that was their legal opinion, but there are other firms and other attorneys that have different legal opinions.
Right.
So, you know, not to pick on attorneys, but they all have different opinions, and you can hire the one that you.
Yeah,
so that came from. That's where that came from.
Yeah, I just wanted. I was
just to add to the clarification. The city works with a consulting firm, and that's the firm that has made the recommendations to us.
Right, thank you.
As a city.
And that firm thinks that some of these we can't do, or some of what you're proposing.
They felt that setbacks were in effect a ban. That was their opinion.
Okay, all right. And then the other question, when I was looking at your proposal about making permit applications do their study on the frequency and measure it, do you know, are other places actually doing that? Is there any sort of role model for us on that one?
Yeah, in fact, I've looked at lots of other ordinances, and some of them are referenced at the bottom of the proposal. If you look at a lot of them, they do have similar language about doing that testing ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I've actually already drafted the application document to give to the commissioners whenever they're ready for it. I have it all drafted up and ready to go. And it's kind of a combination of some things from Montgomery County, some things from Marin County and California, and I sort of adapted it to what would be appropriate for Rehoboth Beach. So,
yeah, I guess my one reaction when I was looking at it was, well, A, I don't really know enough to say, to like give my own opinion, is this really legal or not for us? But I know you've done a lot of looking and comparing what the on the federal level, what they've said local governments can do. But it seems like we're going to trying to put in a pretty big permit review process in place that we don't actually already have. And so we have to make sure that the city has the people who know how to look at these reports and evaluate these things. And I think you're on really solid ground with some of the setbacks, and that kind of stuff is simple. But I thought this whole asking them to do this radio frequency testing, which is probably a good idea, but do we as a city have the ability to review that and analyze that? And
Right. The goal would be that the testing would be done by the wireless communications facilities and paid for by them, not by us. The second thing is that I have this little radio frequency monitor, and I actually took it around the city the other day, and I went to the 6 proposed sites that I had heard about from the commissioners, and it took me about an hour to take all the readings, so it's really not a big deal to do. Okay. It's not a super time consuming, and again, the goal is that without testing, you don't know if you're meeting the FCC requirements for radio frequency emissions. So what has been done in the past is that they would just submit a document that says, we meet the requirements. But without the testing, you don't know. And the other thing I found when I went around with my meter is that the city already has a pretty high level of radio frequency emissions just in their ambient state, because we have a lot of overground power lines that emit some, and everybody in their house has Wi-Fi, and that kind of accumulates to have a kind of a ambient level already. So now when you're adding stuff on top of that, you can't say that it started from 0. You have to know where you started before. And the only way to know that is by doing the actual testing at the site. So that's where that requirement comes from. And again, the goal is to meet the FCC guidelines, not to preclude any providers from providing service.
That the wireless communication companies meet requirements.
Yes.
Right. And test themselves.
At each individual location. Yeah.
Heather, how do we respond to a suggestion that the 60 feet setback from residential dwellings is not the same as a ban? Most every place in town is 60 feet from a residential dwelling in the residential areas. Is that basically saying everything has to be on Rehoboth Avenue or the other commercial streets?
I think that's what.
Well, there are actually some communities that have limited wireless communications facilities to only commercial areas. But the way that, on the advice from Montgomery County, the way that I worded it is that it's a 60-foot setback unless it's granted by special exception. So there's really no ban. It's just saying that the process for putting it that close to someone's house has to go through the special exception process. So this way the homeowner would be able to find out about it. And the really important thing about that is that there's actually a diagnosis of having sensitivity to radio frequency emissions, and it's covered by the Americans with Disability Act. If somebody were to have that, they would need to know that something was going to go up in front of their house ahead of time to be able to take advantage of the protections that the ADA affords them. So it's kind of critical for that.
Are there any parts of the city where you're in a residential area that you could locate one of these and still be 60 feet away from any residential dwelling, such as in the middle of King Charles Street or one of the major residential streets?
Yes, in fact, we were discussing earlier the one at State Street and Hickman. And like I said, it already has the box, which is the precursor for the pole going up. If that one were just simply moved about 150 feet to the left, it would be in front of the parking lot for, I forget the name of their condos or townhomes there. And it would definitely give it 60 feet from anyone's home. So a lot of times it's just a simple fix like that.
So are you talking about where that Verizon truck is located?
Yeah, so where the Verizon truck was located, if they want to put it on that pole, it's going to be really close to that person's house.
Right.
But if you give it about 150 feet down towards Dewey Beach, there's nothing around there except the street and the parking lot. It would be a much better location. And that's just one example of something that can be done.
Mm-hmm. That's your neighborhood, Dick.
Oh, it's right outside the window of the room I'm sitting in right now. Literally.
At least you'll have 60 feet.
Yeah, at the most, barely.
Well, maybe we should move it 150 feet the other way.
No, but if it went down further beyond our townhouse building,
Closer to the overpass.
yeah, and not even that far, then it gets on to public property, Del Dot property, and then there are no homes or residents, within hundreds of feet.
Right.
So, what I think what Heather's saying is that it should be a relatively easy fix, unless there's other complications of underground infrastructure that, that dictates some of this. I mean, that I had no information on.
The thing that actually surprised me the most is that Verizon is running, so all these antennas are above ground and they're transmitting their signal wirelessly, but to get there, the signal is coming on a cable, and a lot of those cables are overground. They're not being buried. In fact, you can see them running down State Street. You can see them running down Route 1. You can see them running all the way down to Bethany. So it was interesting to me because, obviously those poles are all subject to hurricanes and down trees and things like that. I was kind of surprised. But some of the equipment in other local areas is being required to be undergrounded. And I think that's something we should probably look at as well.
Well, I'd like to point out we're getting close to the end of the hour. And I'd like to ask Dick, Dick, do you think this is ready to go as it is? Would you suggest that we need to noodle things anymore? Or what's your advice?
Well, my advice is kind of like it is on all of these things. I would, I think you probably need to sit and meet with the city solicitor again and get his advice. I know that there's been some communication between Heather and the mayor in terms of getting this on the agenda. I think the last communication, at least that I saw, was a meeting later in August. The 21st would be the earliest that it could be on our agenda. And I don't know how that communication ended. That was the last that I saw was the mayor's suggestion that would be the earliest. So, I think it's like a lot of these things, in order to move it along, you need to take some of these steps. And so, I think having Heather come back in front of the commissioners again with Heather and or any of you, and presenting it and having a discussion, and then going back to do whatever next step of homework is thought needed, helps to move this along.
Do you think?
I don't know that you're going to be. Go ahead, Charlie.
I was just going to ask if you think it helps to have Heather be able to present and say, this proposal has been approved by the Environment Committee already. Does that help with the conversation? Does that
yes.
Say that we're jumping the gun?
Oh, yes, I think it's much better to have it come from a committee than from an individual.
That's what I was saying.
Absolutely.
Well, if we are confident in making such a motion and approval to back up Heather on this, which goes to the commissioners to say that this has been approved by us, I would be willing to entertain a motion on that topic. Anybody want to give me a motion?
Nettie wants to ask a question.
I'm sorry. Nettie, go ahead.
I would like to move that we accept Heather's proposal and as a committee support this proposal for the commissioners.
Okay.
Hook, line, and sinker. Yeah.
Is there a second to Nettie's motion or proposal?
I accept.
Catherine is the second into that as well. Is there a further discussion before we have to pull down the curtain on this topic? If not, let me hear a vote from those who say aye. Say aye.
Aye.
And who say nay? Hearing no nays, the motion is passed. The Environment Committee has backed or proposes, as Heather has got here, the 3-part proposal recommendation. We endorse that proposal. I'm not speaking very well today. What is it? It must be this funny thing I have around my neck.
You have that thing hanging on your chin. So now what? So we propose it, and now Heather just sends this somewhere. How do we do that?
Heather's
Just
talking.
for the note taker.
Heather's talking on the 21st with the mayor and commissioners, and she will come armed with the approval, not just of Heather, but of the entire Environment Committee. Is that the way you see it, Heather?
I guess I would defer to Commissioner Byrne. I did get a confirmation from the mayor that he will put this on the agenda for the 21st. So I'll be ready. If anyone has questions or comments in the meantime, please feel free to get in touch with me. Yeah.
I'll be there with you on the 21st, Heather. So,
Great. Thank you all very much.
confirm.
Sure. Thank you.
You know, I have to confess, it's taken me a really long time to understand this. And part of that is because when I'm given a bunch of documentation, my brain just really shuts down. But reading and rereading, and now, you know, and maybe if you've had it in this format all along, forgive me for saying this, but here is our proposed recommendations. A, B, C has really been helpful. But, you know, that's just, I think, for me, a comment about how hard it is when you have all this stuff to synthesize. It's taken me a while.
Yeah.
Can I just ask Commissioner Byrne just a quick question?
Mhm.
Do you have any suggestions for anything that we could do in the interim? I've heard about these 6 proposed wireless communications facilities in the city, but I don't have any details, and I don't really know exactly what's going on. So in the meantime, while we're working on getting this proposal to the commissioners, do you have any suggestions for anything we can do? I have seen before that the city doesn't have any obligation to approve these while we're still under a state of emergency. That's legal, but do you have any other suggestions for anything that I could help with or that we could do?
No, and we've not been presented, you know, recently with any formal information either on the various sites and so on. So I think getting the proposal that was just approved in the best format possible, and then getting it to Ann so that she can get it on the agenda, so that, you know, everyone will have a chance to read it, hopefully. Well, people will make the opportunity to read it in advance. And
is this August 21st meeting going to be in this format with Zoom, or, you know,
yes.
what's the public participation?
Yes, so there's an opportunity to sign up but well, you don't have to sign up to observe the meeting, but you do have to sign up if you, in advance, if you choose to be a presenter or speaker at the appropriate time.
Okay.
And that's all on the agenda that goes out. That's on the city website, a minimum of 7 days prior to the meeting.
But that still doesn't do anything about any of these things going up in the meantime, which I think is what you were asking, right, Heather?
Construction.
Right.
Yeah.
Who do you talk to about that, to say, can we just hold off until our meeting in August?
I'm not aware of anything that you could do. You know, it's certainly worthwhile if you want to have a conversation with Kevin Williams, for example, our Director of Public Works, and just see what the status is.
Okay.
You know, you could email him, see if he's available for just a phone conversation, and try to see what's going on with that, Heather.
I want to disturb him. I know they're really busy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If you want to talk with Kevin Williams, I'd be glad to join you in that, Heather.
Okay.
So it's past the hour of 12 noon. I think we're supposed to stop. Much as I'd like to continue the conversation with all the wonderful people we have here today. But since we are time limited, Max and Ann have other people to take care of. I would entertain final question, I guess. Any final comments by any of the members or commissioners before I entertain a motion for adjournment? Hearing none?
I would
Nettie?
just like to compliment Heather, because you are a canary in a mine, and this is a time-sensitive issue. And so, though I don't understand it all, I just really appreciate your research and your saying, we need to look at this. We need to hold off, because so many things like plastics, like all kinds of stuff, we've not said anything. We just let it take over. And so I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Nettie. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, any objection to adjourning? Hearing none. The time is 12:05. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Good weekend, everyone.
Yeah.